Welcome to day 4. We're going to get right into day 4, which is the audio strategy for your ministry. So what does this mean? Well, this is going to specifically focus on the voice, okay? Projecting your voice. This can be voice or video. We're going to talk a lot about podcasting in this, so stay tuned and see how you can implement the audio strategy for your ministry. So audio being the spoken word, obviously, we're going to make this easy for people on the go. So audio is very easy if you're on the go. You can do so many things on your phone. You can do lives, you can create short videos, you can even podcast on your phone, which I would not recommend, but if you're going to do quick, impromptu podcasts or impromptu lives, you can do all this on your phone. So this is great for people on the go. You can also take voice memos, which you can later use for a blog. A lot of people do voice memos, which are specifically for you, but when we talk about audio, we want to try to utilize our spoken word, and if you're a pastor, you like to preach, you like to talk for the most part, and so you're going to be able to utilize this for your ministry in different ways than you might have considered before. So this is a growing segment, okay? There's a lot of resources out there for Audible content. Just look at Audible, which is books in Audible form. Okay, reading books is something that is, I'm not going to say going away, but it is changing the landscape of reading a physical book. Now you have Kindle, now you have Audible, things like that that can help you digest the information without specifically reading page by page. Audible is something that you can do with your book as well. You can turn it into an audio project. So I've looked into that for mine. It is pricey to do that unless you're recording it yourself. It is something you can do though if you have a book, and so that's an option for you. So podcasts are still growing. Podcasts are not dying out no matter what you hear. Podcasts are growing. They're easier to do than ever before. People are more engaged with podcasts than they are reading. I can say from personal experience, someone who has blogged and now podcast, people are much more likely to listen to what you have to say than to read what you have to say in general, right? There's exceptions to the rule. You probably have audio resources already if you are a pastor, right? You do a sermon almost every week, and so you already have audio that you can use for repurposing and also to repackage the content. So you already are used to doing this if you are a pastor, and so we're going to look at ways you can do this for a bigger audience too than just your church. This is also a growing segment on social media, so audio in general. If you look at not just audio and video, but if you look at YouTube, if you look at the lives that you can do on Instagram and TikTok and Facebook, these are ways to project an audio message to somebody. And if you do it as a live, there's also a time constraint on it where you have to be on the live to see it. You can watch a replay later, but there's an important part of going live where people can interact with you and see you in the moment, right? This may include video. This is used for training, connection, teaching, Q&A, things like that. When you talk about audio, people get to hear you, right? They don't just get to read something that you wrote. They get to see you. They get to hear you. They get to interact with you a lot of times. And you can use this for Q&A. You can use this for discipleship. You can use this for a number of things. We talked about Facebook pages and groups. You can go live in your pages and groups to help give a message specifically to your audience, which I can do in Ministry Funnels Facebook group as well. So podcasting, so this is a big chunk of today. So whether you are brand new to podcasting or whether you maybe even have a podcast, I hope there'll be information in here that you can use and digest. So first of all, anyone can podcast, all right? I'm living proof of that. I thought podcasting was very, hard to start. I thought it was hard to do. I thought that I couldn't do it. I'm not one that particularly loves to speak, and so I thought that I just didn't have it in me to do it. So I'm proof that you can do it. It's not that you can just do it overnight. You need to be strategic about it. You need to take partners. You need to learn. All this stuff I'm teaching you, you have to put the effort into it, okay? I am not a replacement for you putting in effort into your ministry and learning these things yourself. I'm just connecting you to the right resources to help you on your journey. So podcasting is also very low cost to start. I'm going to share with you my setup It's very low cost to start. There's a lot of free resources out there as well to help you podcast. But just know that it is something that is low cost to start, but if you want to take it seriously, you're going to want to grow over time. Maybe if you're budget constrained, you can start improving things here and there, kind of like I did. But just know that you can podcast, ASAP if you want to. But what I would suggest is have a strategy on how you want to stand out, right? Podcasting is growing, but there's also a ton of podcasts out there, more than ever before, because anyone can start one, which is one of the benefits of it. But you also want to make sure that you have something unique to say. You don't want to just say what everyone else is doing. You don't want to just rehash what other people are saying. You want to be specific. What is your podcast going to bring to the table that is specific, that will make people want to tune in? And one of the awesome things is that you probably already have a core group of people that want to hear what you have to say, especially if you're a pastor. Even if you're a pastor of just 100 people, you have 100 people that want to hear what you have to say every Sunday. And so you can have a podcast with at least 100 people to start. And that is a great starting point for a podcast. My podcast started out with only 100 views for many episodes, and still it grew. So don't think that just because you have a small amount of people that want to hear what you have to say that you should not put your message out there, because it is a great starting point. Now, many podcasts take years to actually grow fully into what some of the big ones you see today, unless you're going at it with a name. Like if you're a major name in ministry or entertainment, I mean, you can start a podcast tomorrow and have millions of followers. That's just how it works. But for you and me, we need to have a more strategic approach about what do we want to bring to the table when we start a podcast. So for me, it was, I want to start a podcast on discernment and interview people specifically about decisions they made in their life, both good and bad, so that we can learn together on them being transparent about good and bad decisions they made. Okay, so this is something unique that I did to start out. Now, churches themselves, so if you're a pastor of a church, more than likely you already have a, quote, podcast that is just your sermons. That's very typical, and there's nothing wrong with that. But when we talk about your specific ministry, I want to encourage you to have a separate podcast from your church name. All right, so if you're, Oasis, or whatever your church name is, Oasis Podcast, it makes it seem very specific to have to go to that church to want to hear the message. Now, obviously, people will listen to other sermons based on the popularity of the preacher. So if you're like Michael Todd or Matt Chandler or Stephen Furtick, you can have a church podcast that people will want to listen to. But for everyone else, your church podcast is specifically going to be catered towards your church. It's not that other people can't hear it, but the way for you to stand out is to have a specific podcast that can be marketed to your church, but also is something that if people hear the title, they can say, all right, that's interesting to me. There's not this immediate disconnect for me not going to that church and not being able to hear it. So consider that. There's no right or wrong way, but that's just my suggestion. You can have a Oasis Church podcast where you have a Sunday sermon and then a Wednesday devotional that gets put onto the podcast. That's totally fine. But I would definitely try to consider something specific to you and your ministry that is separate from your church. Like I said, churches already have an audience. You don't have to go looking for people. You already have people that want to hear what you have to say. And podcasts are a great way to connect with others in ministry and allows you to be a guest on other podcasts as well. I've done a trade where I come on your podcast, you come on mine. Also, if you if you start putting your name out there, if you write, if you blog, that's a great starting point for getting on other podcasts. I think I said before, when my book launched, I was on 8 podcasts within a month, right? And I hadn't been on any podcast before that. So it's a great way where people are looking for new content, up-and-coming writers, people that have something unique to say in the market, okay? Or ministry, I should say, but. Making money podcasting is rare, but feasible. Okay, when I didn't start a podcast to make money, I still don't make, money to cover my costs basically, but I'm doing it for the ministry, the passion that God has put on me to get this out there. And so just know that there are ways to make money through advertising, sponsorships, commercials, things like that. However, don't think that this is a one-way street to just make money, okay? So here's some specific tips and tricks of podcasting, whether you are thinking about starting it or you want to come back to this or take notes now. These are some things that I learned over time on how to podcast and do it well. So having a launch strategy is huge, all right? So when I first started podcasting, I just started recording myself talking for 40 minutes, and I recorded about 3 episodes, which never aired, and I realized they were extremely boring and no one wanted to hear them. So I had to start a new strategy of interview-based, specifically around what I talked about before. And having a launch strategy is very crucial. So there's also ways to do that can help you gain momentum in the charts right away. So there's charts out there saying, you know, top 200 Christian podcasts. If you can hit that top 200 number, you can take a picture of it and say, hey, I'm a top Christian podcaster, and that helps you get other people on your podcast. And having a launch strategy is huge. Much like a book launch, you want to have people that are a part of your launch team who can help garner momentum, who can help write reviews, who can help share things on social media when you do launch, so you can have a huge bam, here's a ton of people that are excited about my podcast, and that will hopefully register in the charts. And I can go into more detail on this in the Facebook group, but that's the general strategy for launching. You also want to consider whether you want to do interview-based or solo. There's pros and cons to both. I listen to podcasts that are basically just a person talking about different topics every week, and then there's many that are interview-based as well. So decide for yourself what will be most engaging with your audience, and I know some as well that do both. They do 2 podcasts a week. One is an interview, and one is a solo episode. So that's an option for you as well. Having a good mic is essential. I'll share with you in a minute the mic I use, but this is the #1 thing you have to have in regards to podcasting. Recording on Zoom also doubles for YouTube videos. So you can include your videos. So when you record on Zoom, you have an audio and a video file. So, and then when you save those, you can edit the audio and you can post and edit the video and put it on YouTube. So you get kind of a double thing. You get a podcast and you get a video as well that you can post on YouTube. As far as podcasting, getting people on your podcast, a lot of people ask me, hey, how did you get this person on your podcast? And the simple answer is just ask. It sounds very simple, but there's nothing that just replaces being nice, being persistent, but also you'll be surprised who you can get on your podcast by just asking, just being vulnerable and not being fearful of rejection. Consistency is key to podcasting, so plan ahead. Don't just stress about, so I post on Monday, I don't just stress on Friday, Saturday about my Monday post. It's already done, it's already in the books. I might edit it a little bit, but I plan ahead. So I have usually 2 months of podcasting episodes in the books, recorded, and that way I'm not scrambling, oh, I don't have someone to interview, or I don't know how I'm going to get this done on Monday, or I have something come up in my personal life and I can't record. So you don't want to be stuck in that, and you also want to be consistent so people can see your message on a consistent basis. So if they know that you're going to release something every Monday, they're going to look forward to that. I choose Monday personally because it's the start of a new week. They go back to work. Usually involves a commute, and so that's a great way where people can listen to a podcast episode. Some people do it middle of the week. Some people do it on Friday going into a weekend. They might want to listen to a podcast on the weekend. So figure out what works for you. If you do interview-based, please be prepared and ask unique questions. Don't just ask the same 5 questions to every single guest. Find out what they stand for, what their work involves, find out something unique about them, find out something about maybe a book they've written or other podcasts that they've been on. So my research involves both reading their material, checking out their websites, looking at their bio, and also listening to other podcasts that they've been on. And this is so important. I can't tell you how many things that I've prevented me possibly saying and looking like an idiot by just doing my research ahead of time. So there was one person I thought was married who actually got divorced the year before, but I was looking at an article from 3 years ago, and I definitely didn't want to ask him about his wife, considering he just got divorced. So that's just an example of how to kind of stop from being put in a position that will be awkward for you. And then also ask unique questions about things that other people have not asked before. I had Jonathan Rumi on my podcast who played Jesus in The Chosen, and I got a ton of feedback on that interview because I asked questions that people said they had not heard anyone else ask, and he's done a lot of interviews. And so that was awesome for me to hear, knowing that I did my research. I asked him specific things that were unique to my interview to make me stand out from other interviews he's been on. And then another tip is to use your show notes for links and ways for people to connect with you and your guest. There's different ways you can do this, but I always try to ask my guests, what do you want me to promote? I let them promote something at the end of every episode, and then I have a link to that in the show notes. So you want to honor your guest with their time and also promote what they're doing. And at the same time, you want to promote what you're doing and connect them to other things in your ministry, whether it's a book, whether it's an affiliate link, things like that. I do have Linktree. If you go to linktree.com, you can create a one link page where it takes you to all links to your stuff. So it's so that way you don't have to put 20 links in your show notes. You can just include that and maybe one other. I want to go over with you my podcasting setup. Now keep in mind, this is not going to be necessarily the best setup, but it is what I use, and it is a good starting point and something you can build on if you want to keep going on with podcasting and take it more seriously, and as you have more money to invest in it. So the microphone I use is the Blue Yeti. You can see it right here. It is a basic podcast mic, but it is a very good mic. So it is omnidirectional, so you can use it for 2 people or more if you want, or you can use it for a one-on-one. I also have a pop filter, which helps in the hard P's or pops that come in speaking. So that is important too. Some people have an arm that they use that comes across, and that's fine as well. I've looked at microphones that are $300-400 and will potentially upgrade in the future, but for usually $100 you can get a Blue Yeti microphone for a good price and a good starting microphone. So for all these things too, where you can buy them on Amazon, I'm going to have links at the bottom of this training too that you can use to get them directly if you want to start buying some of this stuff. So for podcast hosting, I use Simplecast. It is an option. I talked about Podbean. I'm going to talk about Podbean and other things, but I use Simplecast. So that is the best podcasting hosting I found. I started with Anchor. Anchor is free, but it also is something where you don't necessarily own your RSS feed, which is your podcasting feed. It is hosted through Anchor, whereas on Simplecast, you own it. And if you need to go to another podcast host, or if Anchor goes away tomorrow, you may not have your RSS feed saved. So that's also better analytics on there as well. But if you're looking for something free, Anchor is a good option. And if you want a paid option, Simplecast is what I use, and also Podbean is a great option for you as well. This has been the biggest time saver for me in podcasting is Calendly. So this allows you to schedule interviews in advance, and it is amazing. So you are able to put down your availability, send a link to somebody who's a potential guest, and they can fill out a time that works for them and works for you. And then once you do, you get an email, you get a reminder, and you also get a Zoom link created just for that call. So it's all set up for you. There's a free option, which I use. There's also a paid option, which you can go for as well. But this is so much better than just going back and forth with emails saying, hey, what times work for you? How about this? How about that? And 10 emails later, it's hard to find a time that works. So Calendly, if you're going to do an interview-based podcast, this is something I highly recommend for you. So the camera I use is a Canon EOS M200. This is kind of a starter camera for streaming, for high definition. above and beyond just your normal webcam. So I've used HD webcams as well, which is what I'm on now. But the actual camera itself, the Canon EOS M200 is the best value-based camera for streaming and also for digital video, high quality video. So if you want to do YouTube videos, things like that, I recommend this camera. Now, when I say value-based, it's still going to be pricey. If you're thinking it's $100, it's not. But when on the range of cameras that are out there, this is one of the cheaper options, but still great quality and kind of designed specifically for streamers, YouTubers, podcasters, that kind of stuff. I use Zoom for interviews, which I mentioned is connected with Calendly. There are other podcasting software out there to help record interviews. So if you've used them or have any experience with them, I would love to hear that. But for me and what I do, I love Zoom. It's just easy. Everyone kind of has it at this point, especially after the pandemic, and it saves an audio version and a video version of the feed that you can use for different purposes. Like I said, it may not be the best, but it is definitely one of the easiest to use. I use Audacity for editing software. So this is something where at the end of your audio feed, you can, when you have your audio feed, you can edit it in the software. You can add an intro, an outro, you can add commercials, you can add sound effects, whatever you want to do. And Audacity is one of the simpler editing softwares. And for someone who doesn't love editing or is very good at it, Audacity was very easy for me to use. There was another one I tried, I forgot the name of it, but it was a huge learning curve and I didn't want to spend the time going through it, but Audacity was super easy. Now this is for PC. If you're on Mac, you can use GarageBand, and I'm told that that does very similar thing as far as being an ease of use. Wondershare Filmora X is what I use for video editing. Once again, I'm not that awesome at video editing, so I wanted to make it as easy as possible, and this program does exactly that. Chartable website I use for keeping track of my podcast charts. So Chartable, you can sign up for your podcast dashboard, and it gives you who's viewed your podcast, what the rankings are, and it allows you to see by country too, and by chart. So for me, I'm in the Christianity charts, and sometimes a country will pop up. I'll be in the top 100 for Finland recently, or any other country, and I can make a social media post about that, say, hey, shout out to Finland for your support on the podcast, things like that. So this allows you to see also other top podcasters out there where you might want to reach out to them and do a promotion with them, or have one of them on your podcast as well. I have two key lights, which are just small lights on the side, which I use for lighting, and also projector light on the back of my sound panels. There's a lot of different lighting options. You can get into thousands and thousands of dollars just from lighting alone. I try to go with the cheaper option, and that's something you might want to look into. But if you just want a cheap option, look for two key lights on the side. You also want to watch out if you have glasses like I do, that you don't have a light directly on your face, because that will impact, that will cause an unnecessary glare on your glasses as well. This is especially true with ring lights. If you use those and you have glasses, I find it very hard to use them because it's only one light that's directly on you, and then you end up having a little circle light on your glasses as a reflection. All right, you'll see some Amazon links to some of these things at the bottom of the training, so check those out. And then, like I said, this is just kind of a starting point for you to start podcasting, and then from here you can build upon this. You can have an entire studio, you can have an audio technician, you can have people that do the editing for you. There's really no limit on how far you can go with this, but if you're starting off small and your budget is a concern, these are some great steps to get you there. So if you are looking at podcasting, I would highly recommend something that I went through. It's called the Podcast Profit Lab. This allowed me to go through a program to help me launch. Now, once I thought I was going to start on my own, I switched it up and I changed it around so that I was more prepared to start the podcast. I'm so glad I did it. If you are taking your podcast seriously, I would definitely consider going through this. And what it is now is more of a mentorship than the program that I went through. So Jamie Atkinson knows his stuff. He has mentored me specifically, and I would highly recommend that you connect with him. You can set up a free discovery call with him just to kind of talk about podcasting, see what he has to offer to you, and make sure that you let him know you were referred by me. when you schedule a call, say that you were referred by Tim Ferrara, there is no commitment or payment required for this call. You get to talk to him for free. And so check that out if you're considering podcasting and you think you need a mentor, that you're overwhelmed by it or you don't want to start it on your own. I totally get that. I did that. And I'm so glad I did, because I don't think my podcast would be where it is today. Actually, I know it wouldn't be where it is today if I didn't seek extra resources and mentorship. So check that out in the link below. It's, like I said, might as well check out the call, see what there is that he offers you as far as mentorship goes, okay? I also recommend Podbean, so I found them recently. I don't use them specifically for my podcast, but if I were to start over, I actually would sign up through Podbean instead of Simplecast or Anchor. So there's a link below too on setting up a Podbean account. There's some really cool things they're doing. I think they've improved a lot recently as well. There's an app that you can use where you can actually go live in the app specifically for your followers. So kind of like Instagram or TikTok, you can go live in the app and your followers can see the content that you're giving them right there. So if you're starting a new podcast, check out Podbean. All right, we're doing it live. So another way to get your audio message out there is by going live. You can do this on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and more. This is something, I guess, kind of newer. Facebook started it, I think, and then now a lot of places allow you to go on live. TikTok just started dual lives. You can actually go live with somebody else. Instagram has this too. There's a lot of different ways you can do this. You can do it spontaneously by just jumping on, say, hey, I'm here, let's talk, or you can also plan ahead. I know people that do TikTok church on specific nights of the week, like Thursday at 7 p.m. That way you know what to expect. Some people do just lives of their church. As they're preaching a sermon, they do a live, things like that. So you want to kind of look at how lives can work for you. Find something that works. I would do a mixture of both, maybe one night a week where people know that you're going to be on live. And then some people set up a whole thing where they have 5 cameras going on, and then they go live and they're on all five plus platforms at the same time live. That takes a lot of setup, a lot of cameras, a lot of cost. So you might just want to do maybe TikTok and Instagram when you go live. Once the live is over, it's gone. So that's one of the things that does happen. There's a time-sensitive nature to it. So if you jump on and jump off, you may not be able to catch what the person has to say. There are ways in some of the platforms to save your lives and then repost them. People are less likely to watch a 40-minute live replay than they are to jump on or to watch a shorter video about the same topics. So there's a little luster that's lost when you watch a live on replay because you're not commenting, you're not seeing stuff as it's happening. So this is honestly one of the best ways to interact with your followers. There's a lot of benefits to the algorithm if you actually go through. So for example, and this is what I've been told, is if you go live on Instagram and TikTok, things like that, they actually see that you're a real person, that you're interacting with your audience, and there's more likely that that will help your posts get boosted in other ways. So this does require a chunk of time. You can jump on for 5 minutes, but for the most part, you want to at least commit 15-30 minutes when you go on live, because it does go quickly, especially when people start asking questions. There's ways to monetize going live. Granted, it's pennies, but people can send you coins or promotional things on platforms when you go live. So if you have people that are very, supportive or love what you're doing, there's a chance that they might send you some coins. But once again, this is not something that you're like, oh, I'm going to go live and make a ton of money. You're not going to make a ton of money unless you have millions of followers, which is very rare. So you can also do lives for announcements if you want to announce your new podcast, if you want to announce a new episode or a new book, something going on in your ministry. You can use this for announcements. You can also use this for giveaways. Giveaways are a great way to get responses. So if you're giving away, let's say we partnered together, you're giving away my book. I give you 2 copies to give away, and then you have a contest where people have to tag a friend in your post, and then you're going to choose one of the posts to give a book away. So I've done this before with people where they have to follow me and the other person, they have to tag people, they have to share whatever rules you're going to put on it, and then you choose a winner from there. One of the newer audio formats is Clubhouse. So these are audio chat rooms. These are specific chat rooms that you go in that are audio based only. You can see the picture at the bottom where there's just people's pictures with a little microphone. You have people that are on stage, the ones that are speakers, then you have people in the audience that can't speak. They can ask to come up on stage and then talk, or you can just listen to what people have to say. Clubhouse is pretty awesome. However, there are some limitations to it as well. This is more about connections and specific trainings than it is about broadcasting your message to hundreds of people, which you can do on other platforms. Clubhouse is specific to a smaller audience, which is great for making connections in ministry, learning what other people have to say. Another awesome part about this is that there's no trolls in Clubhouse. You don't have people typing nasty things in the comments. You don't have people doing what trolls do on social media. There's basically no way for them to troll unless you ask them to be a speaker and then they just go off on something, which means you can quickly mute them. Clubhouse is free at the time of this training, so check it out. It's also a one and done thing. You can't save your audios. Well, you can, but you're encouraged not to. So it's one of the things where it's very time sensitive. If you're there, you get to hear what they have to say. If not, you kind of lose out. This is something as well you can schedule in advance. They have what are called clubs in Clubhouse, where it's specifically designed around a specific theme. And so you can schedule events in your clubs in advance so people can be prepared for them and also put them on the schedule. If you start a club and you have a bunch of followers, they can start their own rooms as a part of your club. So that's a cool way. So I do have a club that is for ministry funnels, so check that out. I started it, not doing much with it yet, but I would encourage you, if you're on Clubhouse, to check out ministry funnels, and that's a good way for us to connect on there as well. Masterminds is the other way for, this is for connection, but this is actual paid training. So when you hear the term mastermind, this is basically a smaller format training that people pay to get into, usually a one-on-one or a one-on-10 smaller type of training where people can connect. This is great for discipleship. This is great for training. If you have a specific material that you want to go over with somebody on a one-on-one level, you can educate them. You can have an accountability and support structure system within your mastermind. In the mastermind, you are the expert. You are the one bringing something to the table, which is why people will pay to hear what you have to say. If you are not an expert, people will not want to hear what you have to say. And so whether you create a course or a training, something like ministry funnels, I could have put into a mastermind, honestly, and charge people money for. But I chose not to do that. I chose to make it free to you and then provide links for you to get to the right information. You do not need many people in the group to make a nice profit. So I know people that make 6 figures based on just having masterminds alone as their full-time gig, and that is something that would be awesome, honestly. I've not started one myself. I know friends that have, and I also know friends that are doing very well based on their masterminds. This is usually a specific time every week, so you meet on Thursday nights at 7 o'clock. You and your group gets together, talks about things, maybe just as a way for an accountability group, and from there you can branch off to have more groups as well. From the one you started. So for example, you start a men's accountability group called Iron Fire. You help grow leaders to start their own based on your material. It's kind of like franchising, where someone else starts a group, you get a percentage of the profits that that group makes, etc. You can start masterminds for free if you do them yourself or if you find the right software, but for the most part, these are going to be paid things. All right, if you are interested in a mastermind, this is, again, one of the things where you have to take the time to learn it. Okay, you can't just jump into it and expect to know what's going on. You can monetize it. So I interviewed somebody who does these for a living. Aaron Walker is his name, and he has a great program called the Mastermind Playbook. There's many steps that he has for you. You can see there 11 steps on starting a mastermind, monetizing it. And so I would encourage you to check that out. I'll have a link in the show notes below, or the day notes on how to get involved with this Mastermind Playbook. But this is something I know he's very successful at. I also had him on my podcast, like I said, so if you want to check that episode out, it's one of the earlier episodes in the Everyday Discernment podcast to hear what he has to say about masterminds. Aaron Walker is his name. So action steps for day 4, decide what your audio video strategy will be. I say this every day, but don't just listen to what I have to say without writing something down. figuring out how you will apply it specifically to your ministry. Don't let this just go one ear out the other. This is why I'm having a day in between training, so that you will take time to kind of digest what I have to say, check out the links below, and write down what your strategy will be. Even if you're not going to start a podcast immediately, maybe it's a 6 or 12 month goal, write that down, write down some ideas you have now for it, so that you can start to implement those when it gets to be that time. If you are looking at podcasting sooner than later, schedule a podcasting call with Jamie Atkinson. Like I said, it's free. At least hear what he has to say, and he's a great resource and a mentor that I used. If you're starting a podcast, sign up for Podbean. There's a link below. Practice going live on social media. So this is something that I kind of have to force some people to do. That's why I have it in here. So it may not be something you want to do, but just go live on social media. Just talk for 5-10 minutes. Practice makes perfect. The more you start talking, if you're not used to it, or specifically if you're not used to social media and talking on social media, even if you can talk a full message from the pulpit, it doesn't mean that you're going to be comfortable or know all the little buttons and stuff to do on social media. So practice going live, download Clubhouse, join the Ministry Funnels Club on Clubhouse. Just search for it and you'll see it. And then if you join it, you can create your own room based on the Ministry Funnels, and we can grow it that way. And then finally, share your thoughts in Facebook group about day 4. Talk about what your audio video strategy will be, and also what you've done already. I would love to hear if you already have a podcast or if you have questions. Post that in day 4, and then I'll try to answer them. So that's it for today. Hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you tomorrow for day 5, our final day.